Yes, we are live.
Awesome.
Hello. Hello to
Hi,
the
Mel.
wonderful, hi, Tina Shepardson. And we are here celebrating a really wonderful new book of yours. Now's the time to hold it up high and be very proud of it. The Story
It's
Seeds.
beautiful.
It's a gorgeous book, and we'll talk about it. Published by Gnome Road,
Hmm.
which is one of my favorites. A small publisher, but very powerful, like gnomes, right? Small but
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
And the publisher Sandra Sutter has been on the interview show, and I'm so delighted that your book is out brand new, October the 1st. Congratulations, Tina.
Thank
And
you.
I'll just start by telling everybody that Gnome Road publishes one in a zillion manuscripts. I know personally, having been
Hmm.
rejected more than once by them, and it's very, very hard to get a book accepted. And I know why yours was, because it's a brilliant manuscript, and we'll talk about that. So Tina, welcome. And I'm before I forget, which I sometimes do, to introduce myself. I'm Mel Rosenberg, and I'm the host of the Children's Literature channel of the New Books Network, where we interview wonderful leading authors and illustrators and editors and agents and publishers, all from the children's literature community. So, Tina, welcome.
Thank you, Mel, for having me. I always enjoy watching your guests. Um, you just do such a beautiful job showcasing the kidlit community, and everybody that's involved. It's a family. And
It,
thanks for
it is a
having me
family.
today.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. And
Yeah.
now it's about you. Enough of that.
Okay.
So a few words about this book. I
Sure.
want you to talk about the book, the story, the illustrator, um, and everything. I'll just shut up for a minute or two.
Jump in anytime. So I left teaching in 2021 after 33 years and was not ready to not be around kids anymore. I knew I would miss it. So this was my chosen path to be able to contribute, add value in a different way. The Sorry Seeds, during the pandemic, my first grade teacher passed away, and I was flooded with a lot of memories about her. She was a great lady. She had high expectations for her little kid, first graders. And she lived in my neighborhood at the time I had her. So she was also my neighbor. She also had the most beautiful apple tree 3 doors away from my house. And I was after school with another neighbor one day, and we thought she was still at school. It didn't look like anybody was home. And I just wanted to try one. And all we did was go and grab one of the branches, and the apples actually fell. But she was in her kitchen window, probably doing her dishes, and she called out after me. And I was just thinking about that experience because I was a wreck. I had to go to school the next day. How was I going to face her? So I thought about that, and coupled with the fact that when I went to teach after college, it was in my district. So this teacher had switched over the years from first grade to sixth. So I was in fifth, and the kids all thought, they had this firm, fair, and consistent teacher till they went to her room the next year, and she loved telling them the story. And so the kids September was always full of the kids coming up to me, Mrs. Shepardson, Mrs. Quint told us what you did. And I was just like dumbfounded, but you could see the joy in their eyes, as any child would think that's funny. But it made me think about how when we're little, it's a time to really start to think about how our actions affect others. Sometimes I obviously wasn't thinking about it that day. I just had my eye on the prize, and I got a different prize. I got a lesson and how to be more mindful. And that's where the seeds for the story were born.
It's incredible. I mean, who would have guessed it's actually based on
Yeah,
your true autobiography? I wouldn't have.
yeah,
That's that's brilliant. Did without getting into the solution
sure.
and the unraveling and the beautiful conclusion, is this something that you thought of when you were a child, or this is an addition?
You mean the story itself?
No, how it ends. the brilliant
Oh,
ending?
the way it ends, a little bit of both. So it is, I did go to school that next morning. I did have a plan, but the plan in the book is different. And the plan that I chose for the book was just based on what I took. So it has something to do with apples, and I wove that into the ending. I guess that's a good
So,
way to leave it.
okay, so and that's the fictional coming together.
Yeah.
What I also really look for in a great story
Hmm.
arc is when it arcs back to the beginning of the story and hooks onto it, as you've done so well. So first of all, everybody run out and buy this beautiful book, and a few words about the illustrations.
They're really beautiful. So the illustrator, Bong Hyun Shin, Bong Hyun Shin, is just delightful to contact. She has been really helpful, and her illustrations, you know, the publisher Sandra would share some with me as they were coming together in the early stages, and it's really a process. And as a writer, as you know, you create these characters in words, but then when you see them in a picture and an illustration, you feel like you're meeting new people. And it's the coolest thing. I think that's probably one of the most exciting parts of the process. She chose a really warm palette. I don't know all the artistic terms. I just know that she has very abstract overlays. She just had an eye for the detail. Um, I actually drove to my old neighborhood trying to get a picture of the tree, and it's so overgrown. Does not look like this, but look at what she created. You know, I got to figure out how to, there we go. So she just created a gorgeous palette. And then there's a company called Budsies, and I learned about this from Rosie Pova, who, as you know, is another author that you've had. And I just love to
A
have the,
wonderful author that I've had.
yes, she is. And she'd had a character made from her book, Sunday Rain, and I know many authors do the same thing. And so I do the same. And so now I get to take these girls, Courtney, who's the main character, and Mrs. Smith, this is the teacher. And I start, you know, visits with libraries this coming week, and the kids just love to have their pictures taken. You know, I did it for my other book as well. And I loved
Well,
dolls as a kid, so this is right up my alley.
so this is great advice for authors.
Hmm.
Everybody, I'm definitely going to do that
Hmm.
when my book comes out in the States. That's a great idea.
Yeah, well,
That's
I have to thank Rosie Pova for that, because I remember when she had her character made, and she shared the information in the post. I also, Mel, thought it was the coolest idea, and how kid friendly, you know?
that's great. So
Yeah.
now's the time for the three of you to open your book and
Yes.
uh, and read us a little bit of it.
I will. So here's her end sheets that Bong Hyun Shin did. Beautiful apples. This really does take me back. Okay.
Wow.
There it was, the perfect apple tree. My stomach growled, my mouth watered. The apples looked delicious. Isn't it? It's just gorgeous.
Yes,
Just gorgeous.
a little bit like the book of Genesis with the apple tree.
Yeah. When suddenly one fell from the tree. Thunk, thud, thump. Maybe
Love that.
it
Kids
was
love
meant to
that. Kids love
be,
that.
maybe it was meant for me. And you
One
know what
more
she
spread.
does?
One more spread.
Okay. What she does is there's this little tiny bluebird, and this bluebird follows everything all the way through, which was a big surprise. I didn't know, and it's just an adorable addition. This really was. There, I gotta go this way. You can see it better that way.
Courtney.
Courtney, what are you doing? Ms. Smith shouted from her window. Gulp.
as 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 the Jews would say, oy vey. This is the oy
Yeah,
vey moment.
I love Oy vey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean, she
everybody
walked me
run.
home,
Yeah,
so I knew I was in a lot of trouble.
absolutely. Um, um, this is a gorgeous book. So you talked a little bit about how it happened.
Mhm.
Um, now tell us about how you happened, about your career, and you start out with being born, and your parents are European. How did that
Yes.
feel growing up in America?
I always had, my parents were, I think, stricter than most. Um, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like my father, there's days where, you know, you think you're having a bad day sometimes. And I'll think of my dad and both my parents. They came here when they got married by themselves. So they came here in 1962. I was born in 65 with no family. And they didn't stay married. They were married for 20 years. It wasn't easy. Um, but you know, he built a business. He was a certified public accountant. He went to school at night. You know, my mom took care of us schools because my dad was going to night school and working during the day. So it's understandable that they would be strict parents and have high expectations. You know, life was hard for them. And they did it all on their own. Um, when I was in school, I always loved books. I always loved the library. And once I turned 11, I started babysitting. And so when I started to babysit, I used to make these booklets. I used to write my own stories with, you know, crayons and pencil. And I would tie them with yarn and I would take them with me when I babysat because it was an activity. We didn't have internet and iPods and iPads and all that other fun stuff. So at that time, I'm sure the seeds were planted, but yet I didn't really realize it. And then when I went to school, my dad really believed that teaching, he really pushed me to either go into nursing or teaching. I love science, but not for a full-time job. However, I did end up teaching science all the years that I taught. So
Wow,
I had English, math, and science, 33 years.
wow.
And yeah, I love the kids. You know, what's not to love about the kids, whether they're an easy child to work with or one that's more challenging. They teach you so much about yourself. You know, we always think, oh, we're teaching them all these skills, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? They teach you about you. And it's just a really a neat process that unfolds as the years go by. So you know, now I live locally. I still live in the same city I grew up in and went to school in, and where I taught was also where I went to school. It just happened to work out that way. So the number of years that I went to school, kindergarten through grade 12, and then the 33 of teaching ends up being 45, 46 years in the same place. I wouldn't
Wow.
have had it any other way. Didn't
And
plan it that way.
and you bump into children who you've taught who are now adults, parents. You bump into them everywhere in the city, right?
Yeah, from time to time I do. So for example, the character Courtney, even though Courtney is a type of apple, Courtney was also a former student of mine that I had, and she just this character reminded me a lot of her because she was such a remorseful kid, always wanted to do the right thing. And a library that I'm going to next week for a story time, the girl who answered the phone when I said, you know, I'm just Tina Shepardson looking to see if you have any availability for story times. Tina Shepardson? She goes, Mrs. Shepardson, it's Anna. So I almost fell over. I said to my husband, and it's a local library here. And so she's in her late 20s now. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's all good though. I mean, those are wonderful experiences.
And you remember the kids?
I would say most of them, like we all change physically, you know, and we sound different. But I'm sure to these kids, even as adults, maybe we haven't changed at all, you know, as
For sure.
opposed to the way they've changed from that young child
And, and
to
and
an adult.
teachers have the one of the most important jobs in the world. What grade were you teaching? How old were the kids?
I taught grades 5 and 6. So I taught 10-year-olds, 9 going on 10 in grade 5, 10 going on 11 in grade 6, and some would be turned 12 by the end of the year.
And you taught them science subjects.
I did. Hi, honey.
Bye.
She can join.
My joy.
They're so cute.
Thank you. I'm gonna get the gears from my daughter because they're now on. Anyway, so where were we, dear Tina?
We were seeing students and teaching being an important job.
Yes. So this is one of the most important jobs on the planet. And you taught nonfiction subjects to 10 and 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. But at some stage, when you decided that it's time to write and share stories, you went back to picture books and fiction, which makes me very happy as somebody who had a scientific career and went back to my greatest love, which is fiction for very small children.
And it's wonderful that we have the choice to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, but okay, but why? I mean, I think I know why I did it. Why did you do it?
So I turned 50. I'm 58 now, soon to be 59. When I turned 50, I said to my husband, at 55, I would like to be able to leave. And I didn't call it a retirement. I called it a transition because I wanted to begin a new journey in books and my podcast with kids. And so I thought, you know what? I have 5 years to try to get my plan B started. So I started to take online classes like Mira Reisberg's Children's Book Academy. I've joined 12 by 12, all the wonderful kid-led opportunities. So I could start to learn, what is this publishing world all about? And you are right. It is very hard to have manuscripts accepted. I think there are so many good stories out there, and I think it's really difficult for publishers to make these choices. And they, on their end, put so much work to bring the book into the real world. We start the process, they finish the process, so to speak, with the rest of the village, the editors and the illustrators. But so I had my first book go in contract right before I left in 2018, and it came out during the pandemic, and that would have been Walkout with Clear Fork Press. And that was a tough time to have a book come out. So as you know, the world was closed down, so it wasn't like visits were available. I did a lot of things in my classrooms with the kids. But when I left in 2021, I felt I had a good handle on where I needed to continue to grow. It's not even like where I continue to go, because you can't go unless you grow. And the industry is always changing. So it keeps us all on our toes in a good way.
Okay, but this new book, it has this. I was reminded of the Bible, but there's a reason. There is a fable here, and even though we teach our students, don't teach, don't write to a message. There is a very strong message in the book, but there's a much stronger story arc. So I think that's what's wonderful about it, in my opinion. And I think this is what publishers are looking for. They're looking for books that have a strong message, but that are not driven by the message, but rather by a stronger story.
Yes, yes. This child in this story, even though it's based on me, she goes through all of the emotions that even as adults, when we've done something and we've hurt someone else's feelings, we go through all that reflection. We go through all that guilt. Well, we should. But, we need to take that time to reflect on what we've done and find a way to make it right with someone, from our heart. And that's different for everybody. There's no one set way to say you're sorry. There's no one set way to make that situation better with someone. We individually have to figure that out. The way I did it in the book is the actual craft that I'll use for library visits and school visits.
Okay, so expound on that a little bit, and then I'm interested in how you got published.
Okay. So she decides to make a seed packet as a way to apologize to her teacher for the apples that fell from the tree. Her teacher.
We were going to keep that as a secret, but now the secret is out.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Now you have to buy the book.
So that seed packet that she makes for her teacher is what I have packaged up for little kids to do as a craft. Wow, and then they can save it.
This idea of bringing the seeds in. Do you remember when you had that idea? Or
yeah, it just came to me. So we have 2 dogs, our Akitas. We've always had Akitas. All my story ideas, when I was teaching, the kids would say, "What are we going to do today?" And I said, "Well, the dogs and I this morning thought about," like I always say, it was with them that I came up with these ideas, because anytime I'm walking, when you have time to yourself and your mind is free to flow wherever it would like to go, that's sometimes where most of my ideas come from.
But they just kind of pop in somehow.
Yeah.
What my friend Jeff Pulver calls the shower moments. And then you say to yourself, well, where did I get that idea?
Mm-hmm.
I've just solved the equation of my story.
And you write it down. At least I do. I'm finding if I don't write it down, I might not remember it the next day.
I have several that I didn't write down. I have no idea where they are. Sometimes they come back to you, but most often they don't. And so then you had the story together. Did you work with critique partners, critique groups, SCBWI?
I have 2 critique groups. I've worked a lot over the years with Melissa Stoller, and Sandra used to be a critique partner also. And then I have another group of critique partners that are all authors with the same publisher here. And so we all had our books come out this month. So we formed a critique partner about a year ago. And as you know, in this process, it's invaluable to have objective feedback. Sometimes we think what we've done is ready to go, and then all of a sudden they get their eyes on it and their thoughts, and they're invaluable because they help you to see it in ways that you just didn't on your own. And they're wonderful ladies, all of them.
Was it Sandra was in your critique group?
Yeah, years ago. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, but one of the things I know about Sandra is you could be her brother and she won't publish you unless you're fantastic.
Yeah. I give her so much credit. We all like to follow our dreams as we age and grow, and that was a big one. And she has more than has the skills, the talent, the drive, the work ethic, the whole package, and very important for her to pick the stories that she does pick. I can't say enough about her as a professional. The process of going through this was just very methodical, scheduled.
And pairing with a remarkable illustrator.
Yes, she really, as I say, words are one thing.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to that in a minute. So you just wrote to Sandra, sent her the manuscript?
Yeah.
Without an agent?
Yes, I was not agented at the time. And it was a while, before I heard back. She has, I'm sure, so many people, like all publishers, so many people that would like to publish a story. And sometimes I don't know how they all can pick, because there are excellent writers out there.
Well, I can tell you, they they have a sense of smelling
Mhm.
or sniffing out just like the pigs that find the mushrooms.
Yes,
The really wonderful editors and publishers have a way of sniffing out these delicious mushrooms. Uh,
right.
and but there's another thing that sometimes prevents books from being wonderful, which is the pairing process and finding the right illustrator, and then having the illustrator take your framework,
Mhm.
the framework you've laid down to create this whole beautiful visual dimension.
Right, right.
And that doesn't always work. And it's like I'm pontificating here, but you asked me. It's like going to a restaurant and having this really delicious dish, but
Yeah.
something conflicts on the plate. Like the potatoes are amazing. Um,
Yes.
so it's knowing how to juxtapose
Mhm.
the writing with I think with the artwork. Um, and Sandra's done a wonderful job here.
Mhm.
And which brings me to the next question. Sorry, I was so long-winded.
No.
So I I went through a similar process. How does it feel, Tina, when you've attained your dream and Sandra wants to publish your story? It's a great story, and she says, "Okay, here is your illustrator," and Bong Hyun Shin
Mhm.
is going to do some illustrations, and then at some stage we'll show them to you. We'll show you
Right.
your character. You
Right.
have this angst. Oy vey. What if I what if I don't like Courtney?
You know what? Someone else brought this up recently, and I said I would. I know we aren't supposed to say the word never, but I can't imagine I would ever not like the character because I just think to be able to be published is such an honor and it's not an easy process. I don't mean it's, science and math difficult, just there's a lot of competition out there. Your story isn't going to be the right fit for many, most, or all publishers. Just that's just the way the market is. So I think I look at it as whatever the illustrator decides these characters are going to look like, I'm just going to be blessed by that and just get to know them in a different way. So the first time I received those sketches, I have chills. Like I remember my fingers like on the ready to click open, and then when I see them, like I had tears. And this wasn't even when either of them were finalized. It was the beginning stages, and this type was a possibility, and maybe she'd have the barrette. You could see maybe she'd have longer hair. I just loved all of it. Also, I can't draw to save my life. So when I taught, I used to draw stick people on the board when I was trying to show the kids something, whether it was the chalkboard years ago or the smart board with all the fancy bells and whistles. And I would say to the kids, you have to laugh with me, not at me when you see my sketches. And I just think of that when I think of the illustrator, because that's a whole world I didn't receive that talent for. That was my
Incredible.
long-winded explanation. Sorry.
And no, and it was if I were interviewing me, I would have I think exactly the same story to
Mhm.
tell. It's incredible. But you didn't answer the question of why you chose picture books and fiction. You could have chosen middle grade chapter books, um, historical fiction, whatever, nonfiction.
I do have those manuscripts created. I do have a middle grade that is supposed to be out next month called Canines
Oh,
Unleashed, based on my
okay,
dogs, about a
okay.
dog going to daycare.
Hmm.
When his owner, a kindergartner, starts school and the family doesn't want him home all alone all day. So they're
Hmm.
going to put him in doggy daycare. I have some nonfiction that my agent has, but as you and I know, it's not time yet. We don't have contracts, so we just wait and we keep writing.
Okay. So, how did you find the agent? And who is your agent?
Oh, I have Sharon Belcastro from the Belcastro Agency, and we connected Last December 31st, I heard from her. And I thought, gosh, that's a sign for the new year. Quarrying, and as you know, it's a lot of work. That's another whole layer to this industry. So it was just lots of queries. After you research, look to see what they're open to, what they like. And I had queried her in the summertime and didn't hear from her until the last day of the year. We all have lives, things are happening. In fact, she's in Florida right now and left to be safe with her husband and their dogs. So, you know, we all
We're
have
wishing safety to all our friends,
everyone.
wherever
Yes,
you are.
exactly, exactly. So online, you know, I haven't met her in person. I hope to at some point,
It
but
would
it
be
is a
wonderful.
process. Mm-hmm.
But look, I'm going to reiterate myself, reiteratingly, and tell you and the viewers and listeners that the odds of getting published in the
Mm-hmm.
picture book world are about 1 in 3,000. That's like one manuscript gets published by a traditional publisher, 2,999 get rejected.
Right.
So you are one of the seeds
Mm-hmm.
of many, 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 many seeds. And you can tell me you're lucky and you're fortunate and whatever, and I'll say, okay, but still, it's a fantastic story and
Thank
it's
you.
and a fantastic book. So I want you please to read another page of it, and then I'm going to ask you for your advice for authors who are trying to break in.
Okay. I know which one I'll show you.
Well, you've already spilled the seeds, you know.
Yeah, it's okay. Here we go. This is probably one of my most favorite spreads. So this is when after dinner, and she's and trying to go to sleep. She's got to go to school and face her teacher. I went to my room and threw myself on the bed. I felt rotten. Me, Courtney, once a great friend, super soccer player, and math wizard, and now a big disappointment. So the student I was telling you about that was such a lovely child who is now an adult, she's 42, Courtney. She was a big soccer player as when she was in the high school and in college. She hated math. She hated my math lessons. um, and this was her, like always wanting to do, you know, the right thing. It just stood out.
Incredible. Did you ask her permission? Did she get a free book? What's happening with
Yeah,
Courtney?
I will give Courtney definitely. I see her. We walk together sometimes. Yeah, she's got two kids, middle school, high school, and a 2.5-year-old.
And
So
is she tickled pink to be in your book?
I think so. She hasn't said, but I think so. I've known her since she was 8 years old, and it's as with all your students, if you see them here and there, it's so fun to see them grow up, and they are still that same child, if I can say that, if that comes across the right way. They like when I see her or when I heard my student's voice on the phone at the library, took me right back. Like it's amazing.
Yeah,
I miss it.
incredible. So and a word or two of encouragement, advice for people who are at various stages of breaking in as a picture book author.
I think we are always breaking in. I think it's a journey you get on because you love books. You love the ability to be creative and impact kids in a positive way. And kids today need stories that we all offer. Um, Definitely become a member of writing groups, critique groups, SCBWI, 12 by 12. There are so many. I don't want to leave anybody out. I have just met, think about it. We are this online community, and anytime I have a question and I put in these groups, people respond like within the hour. I look and it's already on my phone. Someone has helped me find a solution. The PB Summit, there's just so many different avenues, and sometimes you can feel very isolated because we work on our computers all the time. But then when you're a part of these groups, informed critique groups, as a result of meeting people, you realize that everybody has the same feelings that you have, whether they're high or low or in the middle, because it's a journey and it's going to have twists and turns. Some days you'll feel great about it. Some days you might not, but keep pushing forward. Just be consistent with what you do. Reach out to people when you have a question. I can't believe how helpful people have been to me, and I always hope that I pay that back to them twofold. And stay connected. You know, if there's events online, if you have the opportunity to travel to an event, read other people's books. It's fun to just go to a bookstore. Or as you can see, you know, we all buy our own books. We all buy each other's books. And it's so fun to see what other people are writing. And you wonder what inspired it, you know, and you want kids to have that same curiosity and enjoyment as well. But that's my advice. Meet
Yeah,
and connect.
I'm going to add because of your personality, giving back.
Yeah.
You're very much involved in giving back. A few
Mhm.
words on your podcast, your activities. To say, I think it's really important.
Yeah, thank you. So my podcast, the Little Leaders podcast, Conversations with Kids, I interview kids. I just do 2 episodes a month. It's, as you know, it's so involved, but I love it. So I tape most of it over the summer, and then I have 2 kids share picture books that I pick that align with what the kids talk about. So after a child might talk about how they have a hard time sometimes with kids not collaborating in a school project or not being kind to them during recess or in the lunchroom, I can find picture books that match that so kids have further reading. So it's a great way to combine how they are leaders in their own world with picture books that are written by authors in our world. The kids all learn so well from one another. So rather than me, let's say, giving a chat about bullying or how we can overcome it, why not have a child, a peer, someone who's their age, share something about it? So I love that. And, you know, I don't have it monetized. I don't get paid. I don't care. I love meeting these kids.
Tina, this isn't monetized or paid either. And that's a
Mhm.
wonderful, wonderful thing. I can
Mhm.
interview whoever I want, whenever I want.
Right.
And nobody can say, oh, you're saying this or you're doing that.
Right.
But the other thing is, and I'm going to use your seed metaphor again,
Mhm.
the more we give as people, the more we get big time. Like, you know, for each seed,
You
I get
plant.
10, I get 10 back,
Mhm.
sometimes more. So I think that the way you're living your career as someone who's
Mhm.
generous and giving and helpful is also very important to as advice for people who are up and coming. Get involved, do something. Find this like clever thing like what you're doing, a podcast with children.
Mhm.
Find a niche, find your own way of getting involved, of making a name for yourself in this community, which is what you've done brilliantly. And I think that at the 40-minute mark is a great place to thank you. This has been a remarkable interview with a remarkable lady. And it's really a wonderful book. And the more power to you and to the illustrator and to Sandra and her team.
Mhm.
We're a small publishing company can produce a book that's right at the top. So
It's beautiful.
everybody run out and buy the Sorry Seeds. And I've had this splendid opportunity to talk to Tina Shepardson on her new book, The Sorry Seeds. which was just published by Gnome Road. Sandra Sutter is the publisher, and illustrated by Bong Hyun Shin. I apologize if I got it almost right.
She's lovely.
And yes, and so
She's
are
lovely
you.
too.
Thank you so much for this interview. I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature channel of the New Books Network, and I've been here with the wonderful Tina Shepardson. Thanks so
And
much.
I with you, Mel. Thank you.
And we'll do a repeat when you have another amazing
Yes, would love
book
to see you again. Thank
to
you
share
so
with the
much.
community. My great pleasure. Take care, dear.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.